With a universe, a galaxy as huge as the one in Star Wars, there's a lot of ground to cover, but don't worry, we're here to help. Hey, I'm Jacob with the Leaderboard, and this is the Star Wars Battlefront 2 Starter's Guide. And before we get started, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to become part of our notification squad. The basics. When you first start out in Battlefront 2, you're going to find that you have a limited number of options at your disposal since the game uses milestones, a crate drop system, and crafting to give you new items. And as of recording this video, the game is going through a bit of a time to retool some of these systems. Nevertheless, these will all help you customize the different classes to your playstyle. But before we even get into all of that stuff, if this is your first time playing a Star Wars Battlefront game, we'll need to make sure you have a grip on how the actual game controls. For some good basic training, hop on over to the arcade mode and play through a couple of waves at your own leisure, or heck, play the story-based campaign mode for a theatrical experience while you get a feel for which way that blaster fire leans. They're both single-player modes, so you'll be free to learn in an environment where you don't have to fret over if you're holding back any of the more advanced players online, which I can relate to because that's like the biggest thing I'm afraid of in multiplayer. Ready to move on? Alright, cool. Next, we'll quickly explain the equipable items you can collect throughout the game. You got gear, weapons, and star cards. Gear and weapons are for the most part class-specific. They're unlocked as you achieve new milestones as those specific classes. Things like different explosive type and close-ranged weapons can be equipped to fit your strategies. Star cards are essentially class or character-specific power-ups that you can swap out and equip before a round starts. Star cards can either enhance or completely change an existing ability and can have an effect on not just yourself, but your entire team. For example, a star card that jacks up Boba Fett's ability For the Hunt, which allows him to detect and reveal enemies, will allow it to then also simultaneously work for the rest of the team. Details like this make it so that teams who communicate and get organized before a match can have a distinct advantage in the long run. Getting these items can be done in a couple of ways. They can be awarded when the player meets certain milestones and levels up their classes, at which point the game will award class-specific weapons and crates that contain class-specific star cards and crafting parts. Oh yeah, there's crafting too, but you can't immediately craft the best items in the game. They've balanced this by making it so the ability to unlock higher level cards and items is blocked until you've gotten far enough on the milestones. One last thing we need to mention is battle points, which is a currency you acquire during a fight and expire at the end of the game. It can be traded in to temporarily unlock different playable characters and vehicles depending on which mode you're in. Unlockables range from a B-2 rocket droid to a jump trooper all the way to the top with recognizable non-generic characters from the franchise like Rey and Darth Vader, classes and heroes. From the start, you have access to all of Battlefront's standard classes with specific classes available depending on the selected mode. Selecting the right classes for the situation and making sure you have a balanced team can make a world of difference. There are 11 standard classes in total if you count the vehicle classes, so you should make sure you at least know a little bit about each of them. Assault is probably the first class that people should play a little bit before moving on to the others. It's the Ryu from Street Fighter of classes, a well-rounded choice that'll get the job done in most situations. It's your standard foot soldier with a standard blaster rifle and standard mobility. We recommend having at least a couple assault class people on your team, so if you don't know what class to pick or if the other class bases look like they've been covered, no one's gonna get angry at you for picking assault. The heavy is, well, heavy. They're a bigger and bulkier class, giving them tank-like qualities with a higher class of armor and close-range weapons that can pack a serious punch. But with all that armor and firepower, they're a slower-moving target than the rest of the team, making them more vulnerable at long range. The Officer is a support-level class that relies on teamwork to really shine. They have a standard-issue pistol with fast fire, but it doesn't deal a ton of damage, leaving the Officer to instead rely on their abilities, which help their teammates do the heavier lifting. We're talking items like a flash grenade that can stun the other team, or using the Battle Command ability to inspire your fellow soldiers to soak up more laser fire before keeling over. The Specialist is basically your sniper class, with their long-range blaster that allows them to take down enemies from a safe and hopefully well-hidden distance. They also come standard with abilities to help you mark and hunt down players, with items like thermal binoculars to track heat signatures and the infiltration ability, which makes you undetectable on the enemy scanners. The Enforcer class is to Battlefront 2 what the Pyro is to Team Fortress 2, lugging around a backpack flamethrower and what is essentially a napalm grenade. They're used for not only making the other team extra crispy, but they can also strategically block off paths and force the other team to change directions. Aerial is pretty self-explanatory. They're soldiers, but in the air. They come with a jetpack to make them agile enough to get around quickly and a rocket launcher to help take care of enemy vehicles. Most of the standard abilities for the aerial class are maneuverability based, like upward boosts and forward dashes. Those are all your ground-based classes, but there are some vehicle classes to choose from, like the gunship, which is a lower altitude ship that's mainly used for air-to-ground support by taking out bases and enemy swarms. There's also also ground vehicles, which unlike the heavier class is the literal tank class with powerfully armed and highly armored ground-based motion. I mean, yeah, to be fair, unlike your standard army tank, they're usually walking around on robot stilt legs or something instead of wheels or treads, but whatever, you get my point. The Interceptor class vehicle is a smaller and faster gunship. It isn't as bound to the lower altitudes and has far more maneuverability, making it excellent for dogfighting and giving some ground cover for your team. Bomber vehicles are slower moving ships that are designed more for taking out the larger ships than duking it out with similar size class ships. Since they're slower moving, they'll need to be escorted somewhat by other players if you want the best shot at taking out the bigger targets, like Star Destroyers and whatnot. Lastly, there's the Fighter class vehicles, which are your classic X-Wings and TIE Fighters. They're basically the assault class of the vehicles. They're a good ship for almost any situation you'd encounter, and they'll be the bulk of the ships that you combat with in air-based battles. A step beyond basic classes are the Hero class characters. As previously mentioned, at certain moments in a round, you can spawn as a hero for your team if you gain enough battle points during a fight. The core game has 14 heroes that come from the entire trilogy of trilogies, including Luke, Han Solo, Finn, and even Darth Maul. Yes, Darth Maul is technically classified as a hero in this game. I mean, I guess he's a hero to the bad guys? Multiplayer modes. Now that you've graduated with Padawan and have become one with the controller, you'll probably want to move on to the multiplayer and test out your newly found knowledge and skills. So here's a rundown on all 5 of the main multiplayer modes. In Strike mode, you'll be put on a team of 8 and fight against an opposing team while trying to achieve a certain task. If you want to play your standard shooter style modes like Capture the Flag and King of the Hill, those can be found as options in Strike. Depending on the map chosen, each team will have a different objective, like one team trying to take over the capture points of the defending team or breaking into an enemy base to steal their secret plans. In Strike, the only ground classes available are Assault, Heavy, Officer, and Specialist, as well as the unlockable heroes, so there's no pyromaniacs or rocketeers flying around for you to worry about in this mode. Blast modes is Battlefront's take on a deathmatch mode. It also has a slightly higher player count than Strike mode, 10 players on each team to be exact. The core objective is to get your team's kill count to 100 before the other team does or before time runs out. If time does end up running out, it'll come down to whichever team has the most kills. During the match, there's a running kill count for both teams at the top of the screen, and this can make matches really intense when you realize that the other team is close to winning and your next death might be the winning one for the other team. Heroes vs. Villains is a pretty self-explanatory mode. It's a mode with small teams of 4v4 consisting of mostly either heroes or villains from the films. In the previous Battlefront's iteration of Heroes vs. Villains, the hero characters didn't respawn, and once all of them were defeated on a team, that side would be defeated. In this new game, heroes are able to respawn, so you don't have to worry about beefing it right away as your favorite character. The Starfighter Assault mode is an entirely space-based mode being developed by a team over at Criterion. This mode brings full-on space battles to Battlefront, with teams trying to destroy the other's base, and doing so isn't just a simple matter of shooting it enough until it blows up. Your team has to go through and destroy their defense systems to make a run at their vulnerable spots even possible. Also, to make this mode that much more frantic, on top of the 12 versus 12 player teams, there's also an additional 20 AI team members on each side to take on. Lastly, there's the Galactic Assault mode, which is probably the most involved of the multiplayer modes. More than just a single skirmish, this mode consists of 2 teams of 20 players in an entire battle campaign taking place across multiple maps. The battles not only take place across several different locations, but the maps themselves can be huge, with ground, air, and even space battles taking place simultaneously. And there you have it, that should be just about everything you need to know to get started in Battlefront 2. Once again, I'm Jacob, and thanks for watching. Know any 6 strats of your own? Is there any info that we missed that deserves the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. We have new videos dropping almost every day, so let us know what game you want us to cover next. Don't forget to click the bell icon to become part of our notification squad, and if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to the Leaderboard, your home for video game facts.